Genesis 2, the last bastion of ARK's story, bringing with it a myriad of new biomes, new and exotic creatures, an interesting twist on the Genesis mission rewards, and what could arguably be the most inhospitable biome the game has ever seen. To make this world a bit easier to handle, I've compiled together a series of clips to give you the best guide on obtaining every resource you could need while journeying the lifeboat. Excluding the most basic of resources, like wood, fiber, berries, etc. Some clips will be used several times because it's a source of several materials, and this is going to completely ignore the space biome, the loot crates, and supply crates. If you guys find this video helpful, feel free to harvest a like, and now let's get started. Starting our list, we have oil, able to be harvested from the tech creatures, the Parasaur, the Stego, the Raptor, the Quetzal, the Rex, and the defense unit. The oil nodes at the bottom of the ocean biome. Rockwell's garden has several oil rocks that are compatible with oil pumps. It can also be harvested from oil jug bugs, Eurypterids, trilobites, leeches, lampreys, ammonites, Basilosaurus, which can also produce oil in its inventory when tamed, and Tusiteuthis, which also has the same ability, rock golems if you can manage to kill it, Hesperornis eggs when cooked in a cooking pot, and dung beetles when they convert feces into fertilizer. Next we have crystal. This resource is plentiful in both Eden's garden and Rockwell's garden. Some of the best clusters I've found are pictured at the moment, and the best efficiency creature to harvest these nodes is the Magmasaur, but the fastest gatherer for the crystal nodes is the Tech Strider, and the best tool for harvesting these nodes is the mining drill. Argentavis, Ravagers, and Dunkleosteus all get a 50% weight reduction on crystal. Meanwhile, the rock golem is the only creature on Gen 2 to drop crystal when harvested. So let's move on to metal. Metal is probably the single most needed resource within the game. Fortunately, in Genesis 2, it is everywhere, especially in the mountain ranges of Eden and Rockwell's garden, where huge swathes of metal nodes can be found. Metal can also be harvested in the form of scrap metal from the Tech Parasaur, Stego, Raptor, Quetzal, Rex, and defense unit. The best creature to harvest metal nodes with is the Magmasaur. Meanwhile, the Strider gathers it the fastest, and the Anki gains an 85% weight reduction. The RG, Dunkleosteus, Garcha, and Ravager all gain a 50% weight reduction respectively. And like crystal, only drops from the rock golem. Let's talk about Obsidian. Very similar situation to metal, it's very common on Genesis 2, especially in Rockwell's garden. Travel to the mountain ranges, be careful of the denizens around those areas, and you'll come across plenty of obsidian to harvest. The best creature to harvest this with is the Dunkleosteus. Unfortunately though, there isn't a lot of obsidian underwater, so your best bet is to use an Anki for harvesting the most obsidian. The Dunkleosteus, however, gains a 75% weight reduction for obsidian, while the RG and Ravager boast a 50% weight reduction. And just like the previous resources, the rock golem can drop obsidian when harvested. Silica Pearls. This material can be found alongside or at the bottom of almost every lake in Genesis 2, as well as the bottom of the ocean biome. For those who played ARK prior to June of 2018, you would know just how important these pearls were to the late game progression, as they were the core ingredient for electronics. The following creatures have a chance to drop pearls, Silica Pearls, when harvested: Ammonites, Eurypterids, leeches, lampreys, trilobites, and the phoenix is also able to defecate them passively. The best silica pearl farming dino is the anglerfish. However, since the release of the tech creatures, players can skip the pearl farming process altogether and harvest the creatures for electronics. Black pearls, one of the rarer materials on Genesis 2. This material is needed for the highest end variants of crafting and the best food to use for taming the largest aquatic animal, the Tusiteuthis. To find black pearls on Genesis 2, you can use a chainsaw on the Carniflora plants at the coordinates on screen. This is the best congregation of non-aggressive plants I could find on the map. You can also harvest ammonites, trilobites, eurypterids, and the best source of all, Tusiteuthis. If you want passive black pearls, taming a black pearl garcha and feeding it species Y traps is your best option. Now we move to the species seeds, R, X, and Y. You can obtain species R seeds from inside Rockwell's innards when you pick a glowing mutagen bulb. They will spawn in 3 at a time every 8 hours on official servers. Just be careful of the after effects, as it's very unpleasant. Species X is very easy to find on Gen 2 as there's only 2 places it spawns, and they are packed to the rafters in those areas. Species Y is a little harder to find than X, as it is gathered from the plants inside the Eden's Garden Trench, where all the megalodons and mantas are. Just pick the plants by hand and you'll eventually snap some species Y. If you have a Maywing, I recommend using that for the species Y gathering for slightly increased rates. Honey. This resource wasn't originally a part of Gen 2 when it was released, later on being added by wildcard as it was probably unintentionally left out. Bee honey has many uses, including being used as bait for fishing, allowing fish up to size 2.4 to be caught. It is also the main ingredient of sweet veggie cakes, which will allow you to tame ovis and acatinas, as well as heal up herbivores. The beehives can be found in 3 main areas on Gen 2, and when using a full ghillie suit or a dire bear to harvest these hives, you won't anger the bees residing inside. Rolling onto cementing paste, this resource becomes greatly needed during the mid-tier of the game, as everything starts requiring it. It can be made with a combination of chitin/keratin and stone within a mortar and pestle. Or you can raid beaver dams, which are found throughout Eden's Garden. Another method of getting cementing paste is to tame acatinas with the aforementioned sweet veggie cakes, and they will passively make paste within their inventories and store it, as well as drop paste on the ground once every minute. Organic polymer, another absolute staple resource for any player past the early game. Organic polymer is much easier to harvest than hard polymer, as it doesn't require cementing paste or obsidian to obtain. You can harvest organic polymer from Rockwell's innards plants, the small and spherical ones, or you could hunt down mantis in Rockwell's garden, scout out the Hesperornis in Eden's garden, or find the Carcanos deep in Eden's trench. Organic polymer does have a spoil timer though, so its usefulness is limited. It's recommended to have a few acatinas with leveled weight, as they're the only way to extend the spoil timer from 30 minutes to 90 minutes. AbsorbantSubstrate is a very refined resource, but it can be obtained without crafting it. Tusiteuthis can be harvested for small amounts of AbsorbantSubstrate, as can the big yellow poison trees in Rockwell's garden every 15 minutes. Biotoxin can be harvested from the Cnidaria in the ocean biome. Sulfur can only be obtained by harvesting it from a rock golem. Let's speak of rare flowers and mushrooms. Not overly important, but still they have their place. Rare flowers can be harvested by hand or with moss chops from these blue and yellow feather boa plants in Rockwell's garden. Rare flowers are also a common sighting inside beaver dams. Rare mushrooms can be harvested from the pink glowing mushrooms when you use a pick or therizino, as well as small amounts of mushrooms inside crystal nodes when harvesting them with an Anki. The last item on this list is element shards. With this comes the most vital endgame product. Element shards can be accumulated in several ways. You can harvest element dust from all the tech creatures and convert that dust into shards at a mission terminal. Or you can use a chainsaw on the non-aggressive carniflora plants to yield a good amount of shards. Or you can venture into Rockwell's innards and harvest the trees down there for a small amount of element shards. And with that comes the end of the video. I'm sorry it dragged on so much, but there was a lot to get through. It's taken me a very long time to get the footage, edit it, put it together, make sure the information is as accurate as possible. So I hope you guys found this informative and somewhat enjoyed it. And hopefully, it's helped some of you guys out. I'll see you next time.